There were major developments Tuesday in two cases involving former President Trump. One came directly from the Supreme Court, which cleared the way for Congress to get a hold of Trump's tax returns. Trump had been trying to keep the record sealed, but the justices denied the request without giving a reason or recording any dissents. The ruling means the Treasury Department can hand over 6 years' worth of tax records to the House Ways and Means Committee. Earlier in the day in Georgia, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham testified for just over 2 hours to a special grand jury investigating efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Now, in a statement, Graham's office said the senator answered everything, adding he will not comment on the substance of the questions. Now, a lot to get through here. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News political contributor Sean Sullivan. He's also deputy political editor for campaigns for the Washington Post. Okay, first, now that the Supreme Court has rejected the former president's attempt to conceal his tax returns from Congress, what happens next and when?
Well, Omar, the when part of this is the big question right now. So now that the court has ruled and said, look, your efforts, former President Trump, and your legal team's efforts to block this release are not going to be successful, that now clears the way for the Treasury Department to release these records to the House Ways and Means Committee. The question is when. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen yet. The Treasury Department has not said, at least so far, when that's going to happen. And the timing of all this is notable because, of course, Republicans in the midterm elections won back control of the House of Representatives. When they take over, which is going to happen early next year, due to their alliances and support, by and large, for the former president, I think it's reasonable to expect that they are not going to try to pursue this. So right now, the clock is ticking, so to speak, and Democrats who now control the House for a few more weeks have this opportunity to examine these records. But we don't know when. We don't know what in terms of what we'll see in terms of a public release. There's a lot of question marks right now. And again, a clock that I think both Democrats on the Hill and former President Trump's legal team are certainly mindful of right now.
Still a lot of questions, and I'm sure people in D.C. and across the country will be looking at. Let's switch. Senator Graham's testimony in the Fulton County investigation comes after a lot of legal back and forth over exactly what prosecutors could or could not ask him. Graham's attorneys have said he has been told he is a witness in the probe, not a target. What's your take on this?
Well, it is significant that he appeared before this special grand jury. And, let's backtrack a little bit here. This is a special grand jury that was impaneled by a prosecutor in Georgia to investigate former President Trump. He was then president, and his allies' efforts to overturn the election results in Georgia. Of course, President Biden was the rightful victor in Georgia, and the then Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, faced pressure from then President Trump, who asked him to, quote, find votes to help him win. So that's the nature of this inquiry right now. And Senator Graham is a key figure in this because we've heard in the past from Brad Raffensperger, the Republican Secretary of State, that Graham was part of a group of Republicans that urged him to set aside votes that were legal, that were proper. Graham denies that. And so there has been this legal back and forth for a long time. Will he or won't he actually appear before this panel? He did today. His spokesman said this took place, over the course of about 2 hours. This was all in private, so we don't know, of course, exactly what he said, what he was asked about. And we really don't know what the upshot is going to be yet. Will this result ultimately in charges against former President Trump, against others in his inner circle? We don't know the answer to that yet, but it does appear, Omar, like this investigation, or at least this part of it, is coming to a close. And this was something that prosecutors wanted for a while, was to speak to Senator Graham about all this.
And this all comes from the backdrop of we're still waiting for a runoff in Georgia that's supposed to happen next month. Trump's former attorneys, Rudy Giuliani and John Eastman, have also testified before the Fulton grand jury. Georgians recently reelected Governor Brian Kemp, who's also cooperating. Who else could we hear from?
Well, a couple of names to keep an eye on that the prosecutors down there have wanted, or at least expressed interest in talking to. Mark Meadows is one, the former chief of staff, White House chief of staff to former President Trump. Mike Flynn, former President Trump's national security advisor. Whether those individuals will appear before this special grand jury, I think is still up in the air. There's been a lot of legal back and forth from a lot of these witnesses and potential witnesses who in many cases have fought subpoenas, fought legal compelling for them to appear before this special grand jury.
And Sean, before I let you go, we're about 2 weeks out from the Georgia Senate runoff between incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker. Walker and Warnock, it sounds like a heavyweight championship bout. But what's the latest in this race?
Yeah, it's a really close race right now. There was some polling out this week that showed a competitive contest. It's very clear that both parties are very, very interested in this. We're going to see former President Barack Obama hit the trail next week for Senator Warnock. He is seen by a lot of Democrats as, one of the, if not the most, powerful surrogate that they could bring on the trail. And remember, Democrats have won control of the Senate. That's not what this is about. But it's still a big question. Will they get to that 51st seat in the Senate, which could give them a little bit more of a buffer? They've run into problems over the past couple of years because there have been some Democrats in the party, Senator Joe Manchin, Senator Kyrsten Sinema, who don't always agree with the party leadership's agenda. And so this one seat, even though it's not going to decide the majority because Democrats have already secured that, could be significant in the way that President Biden and the way that the split Congress is doing its business in 2023 and 2024, Omar.
Well, I'm pretty sure the Post will have plenty of ink on this. So, Sean Sullivan, thank you.
Thanks so much.